Have you ever wondered why the piano has both white and black keys? Or why the same note can have two different names? Today, we're diving into accidentals, semitones, whole tones, and enharmonic equivalents, essential concepts that will help you understand how notes interact on the keyboard and in music theory. Let's get started. Before we introduce black keys, let's quickly review what we've learned about the white keys. On a piano, the white keys are named using the musical alphabet A, B, C, D, E, F, and G. Once we reach G, the pattern repeats back to A. One useful way to find notes quickly is by using the black key groups as landmarks. The black keys are arranged in alternating groups of 2 and 3. The note C is always just to the left of a group of 2 black keys. The note F is always just to the left of a group of 3 black keys. This pattern repeats across the entire keyboard, making it easier to find any note. Now that we know the white key names, let's talk about the black keys. These keys don't have their own unique letter names. Instead, they are named in relation to the white keys next to them. This is where accidentals come into play. Accidentals are symbols that modify a note by raising or lowering its pitch. There are 3 main types of accidentals. The first one pictured here is a flat. A flat lowers a note by 1 semitone or 1 key to the left. Next, we have the natural sign, which cancels a sharp or flat and returns the note to its original form. And finally, we have a sharp. This accidental raises a note by 1 semitone or 1 key to the right on the piano. In Lesson 1, we learned about the location of higher pitches and lower pitches on the piano keyboard. Higher pitches are located on the right side of the piano keyboard, while lower pitches are located on the left side of the keyboard. This is important to remember when thinking about sharps and flats, since they are either raising or lowering the pitch of a given note. Let's look a little bit closer at sharps. Sharps raise a note by 1 semitone or 1 key to the right on the piano. You will notice that the accidental is placed directly in front of the note on the staff, but is written as A sharp, with the sharp coming after the letter name. If we start on A and raise it by 1 semitone, we land on the black key immediately to the right. This is called A sharp. If we start on C and raise it by 1 semitone, we land on the black key immediately to the right. This is called C sharp. If we start on E and raise it by 1 semitone, we land on the white key immediately to the right. This is called E sharp. We also know this key as F. This is called an enharmonic equivalent, and we will talk more about this later on in the video. Next, we'll look at some examples of flats. Flats lower a note by 1 semitone. Again, you will notice that the flat is written in front of the note on the staff, but when we write it down underneath, we are writing the letter name and then the accidental, so A flat, just like we say it. If we start on A and lower it by 1 semitone, we land on the black key immediately to the left. This is called A flat. If we start on E and lower it by 1 semitone, we land on the black key immediately to the left. This is called E flat. If we start on C and lower it by 1 semitone, we land on the white key immediately to the left. This is called C flat. We also know this key as B. There are 2 spots on the keyboard where white keys lie beside each other instead of having the pattern of white and black, and those 2 spots are between E and F, as well as B and C. It's important to note that these keys are a semitone apart, even though there's no black key in between them. This will be useful information as we move forward and discuss semitones, whole tones, and enharmonic equivalents. So when looking at the black keys on the keyboard, we notice that they can have two different names depending on whether we're thinking of it as a raised note or a lowered note. For example, A sharp or B flat. This concept is called enharmonic equivalence, which we'll explore more in a moment. Now that we understand accidentals, let's talk about two important types of musical distances: chromatic semitones and diatonic semitones. A semitone is the smallest distance between two adjacent notes on the piano. A chromatic semitone occurs when we move from one note to its sharp or flat version, staying within the same letter name. For example, C to C sharp or E to E sharp. In both cases, the note name stays the same, but the pitch changes. Chromatic semitones will share the same letter name, and both notes will be on the same line or space on the staff. Let's work through some practice questions together. Write a chromatic semitone above the given notes. So for this example, we have C as a given note and then E flat as the other given note. And we're looking to write chromatic semitones above these notes. So the first thing you want to do is write another note on the same line or space right beside your given note. When you're asked about a chromatic semitone, you have to remember that it's always on the same line or space and is sharing that same letter name. The next step is to look at the picture of the keyboard and locate your given note so that you can visualize the note that's going to be a semitone away from your given note. So you'll see on the piano here that there's a yellow star, which is going to be used for each given note. And then a purple star is showing the note that we're writing down after that given note. So in this case, we're looking to write a note that is a chromatic semitone above what's given. And so that means we're raising the note, and we're going to use a sharp to do that. So here we have C to C sharp. This is a chromatic semitone. Next, we have the note E flat as our given note, which is represented by the yellow star on the keyboard picture. And so we're looking to raise this note by a chromatic semitone. And in order to raise a note from being flat, we actually are using a natural sign because we're bringing it back to its natural state. We're raising it from being flat. And in order to do that, a natural sign is used. So in this case, our given note is E flat, and we're raising that with a natural to become E natural. When you check out the keyboard picture, you notice those notes are directly beside each other, which means that they are in fact a semitone apart. They become a chromatic semitone because they share the same letter name. Next, we're going to explore writing chromatic semitones below given notes. So we have A to begin with and D sharp. So first we're looking at A, which is our given note, and we're looking to lower that by a chromatic semitone. So we know right away that it's going to share the same letter name. It's going to be on the same line or space as that first note. And in order to lower A, we need to make it flat, and that will lower it a semitone. So A to A flat is a chromatic semitone. Next, we're starting with the note D sharp. So when I locate that on my keyboard, I've put a yellow star on D sharp, and we're looking to lower this note to write a chromatic semitone below that given note. And in order to do that, we're going to, again, use a natural sign. So last time when we were raising the note from a flat, we used a natural sign. Well, a natural sign can also lower a note that is sharp. So when we have a note that is sharp and it needs to be lowered, we're using the natural sign to do that. So D sharp to D natural then is a chromatic semitone. They share the same letter name. They're on the same line on the treble clef. The next concept we're going to explore is called a diatonic semitone. A diatonic semitone occurs when we move to a different letter name while still only moving one key. So these are still semitones, but they are different in the way that they are written and represented on the staff. For example, C to D flat is a semitone. And then as well, we can use E to F as an example as a semitone. These are still semitone movements, but now we've changed the note name. Diatonic semitones are important in scales and harmony because they follow the traditional letter naming system in Western music. So diatonic semitones are still two notes that are directly beside each other on the keyboard. They have different letter names, and the notes are going to be on a different line or space on the staff. Let's explore some examples of diatonic semitones. For this example, we are going to be writing a diatonic semitone above the given notes. So in this case, we're looking at G sharp and E as our given notes. So the first example, G sharp, is our given note. And so what we already know is that the next note that we write is going to be a different letter name. It's going to be a different letter name, but it is going to be a neighboring letter name. So when you are working with semitones, you would never be skipping from, for example, G to B. It's always going to either be G to A or G to F. It's always going to be a neighboring letter name if you're working with semitones. So in this case, because we are writing the semitone above G, we're looking for the letter name that comes after G in the musical alphabet. And we know that after G, we restart the alphabet. So it is A. That should be the next note. So what we're going to do is we're going to write A, the letter A, and then we're going to write it on the staff, which is on the next line or space above our given note. The next step is that we're going to look at the picture of our keyboard. We're going to mark our given note, which is G sharp, and then we're going to check what note is a semitone above that. Because it could be A sharp, it could be A flat, it could be A natural. And we want to make sure that we know which of those A's actually is a semitone from our given note. So in this case, it is just A natural. G sharp to A natural is a diatonic semitone. Our next example is the note E, and again, we're looking to write a diatonic semitone above that note. So the first thing we're going to think about is what is the neighboring letter name above E? And so if we go ahead in the musical alphabet, what comes after E? We have F. So we're going to write the letter F down, and then we're going to put the note on the staff on F, which is one line above the given note. Then we go to our keyboard picture and we're going to locate that first given note, which is E. And then we're going to look at what key is directly beside that E or directly above it. And in this case, it is F natural. Again, these examples that include the two white keys beside each other can sometimes be confusing because we're looking for that pattern of black-white key. But even though they are both white keys, they are still only a semitone apart. They are directly beside each other. So in this case, E to F is our diatonic semitone. Next, we're going to look at writing diatonic semitones below the notes that are given. So we are starting here with a D and a B flat. So our first note is D, and we're looking to write a diatonic semitone below that. So we are thinking about the letter that comes before D in our musical alphabet. So in this case, that letter is C. So we're writing down C, and then we're writing the note on the line C. which you can see also is directly below the line that the first note is on. It's on the space underneath that. Then when we locate our note on the keyboard, we can look to see what C is actually a semitone away, because we know the letter C, but if we had just left it at C, that's actually bigger than a semitone. So we need to raise that C to C sharp to be only a semitone away from the given note. So D to C sharp is a diatonic semitone. Our next example begins with the note B flat. So again, we are thinking about the letter name that comes before B in the musical alphabet. In this case, it is A. So we're writing down A. We're putting an A on the staff, and then we're checking our keyboard picture to see if those two notes are a semitone apart. So B flat to A, we have no other keys in between. And so it's perfect. It's a diatonic semitone. The next concept we're going to cover is whole tones. So, semitones are the smallest step in Western music, and a whole tone is made up of two semitones. So, for example, G to A is a whole tone because it moves two semitones. So, it starts on G, goes up to G sharp, and then to A. So, that distance of two semitones makes that whole tone. Another example would be C sharp to D sharp. Again, the note D would be in between those two notes, making it a whole tone. Let's look at a few examples of whole tones. If we start on F and raise it by a whole tone, we skip one black key and land on the white key next to it. This is called G. If we start on C and lower it by a whole tone, we skip one key to the left and land on the black key next to it. This is called B flat. If we start on E and raise it by a whole tone, we skip one key to the right and land on the black key next to it. This is called F sharp. Let's work through some practice examples of whole tones. So here we have two starting notes, a B and an F. Our first given note is a B. So the process for whole tones is kind of similar to the diatonic semitone. We're thinking about the neighboring letter name that's above or below our starting note. So in this case, we're looking at the note that's above. So we're thinking about what letter comes after B in the musical alphabet. And so in this case, it is C. So we write down the letter C. We're putting a note on the C space. Now, we want to check if that is in fact a whole tone, because if I did not write the sharps in, B to C natural is actually only a semitone if you look at your keyboard picture. And so we do need to make sure that there's that space, that distance from the two notes to make them a whole tone. We need to have a key that's in between the two notes. And so therefore, I'm going to raise my C to a C sharp, which will then make this interval a whole tone. So B to C sharp is a whole tone. Next, we're starting with the note F. And so again, I'm looking at writing a note above my given note. So I'm looking at the letter name that's coming after F in the alphabet, which is G. So I write down G and I put a note on the G line. And then I check on my keyboard picture, are these notes in fact a whole tone apart? Is there a key in between? And the answer is yes. I have one black key in between F and G. It could be referred to as F sharp or G flat, but there is that key in between, making F to G a perfect whole tone. Next, we're going to be writing whole tones below the notes that were given, and we're starting with an A and an F. So here we are starting with A, and we're looking at writing a whole tone below that note. So I'm thinking about the note that comes before A in the musical alphabet. This can kind of be tricky because what comes before A? Well, it starts the alphabet. Well, in music, of course, because we are repeating those letters, G actually comes before A. And so we're writing down the letter G and we're putting a note on the line G. Then we're going to go to our keyboard picture and we're going to make sure that these notes are actually a whole tone apart. We need to make sure that there's a key in between them. And so I'm looking at A, and I have my yellow star there, and then on G is the purple star, and there is a key in between them. It would be called A sharp or G flat. So that's great. A to G is a whole tone. Next, we're starting with the note F, and we're looking for that whole tone below F. So we're going to write the letter name that comes before F in the alphabet, which is E. So I write down E and I put an E on the staff. And then I'm going to go look at my keyboard picture. So I have an F that I'm starting with. If I left E as a regular E, as an E natural, it would actually only be a semitone. This is one of those places on the keyboard where I have two white keys beside each other. So I need to create more distance here. I need to make them further apart. And I can do that by making E flat so that there is in fact a key in between the two of them. So F to E flat is going to be our whole tone distance. In some of the examples we just discussed, we noticed that one note can actually have two names. So for example, C sharp and D flat are actually the same key. This is called enharmonic equivalence, when two notes have different names but sound identical. Some enharmonic equivalents include C sharp or D flat, F sharp or G flat, and A sharp or B flat. Why does this matter? Well, depending on the key or musical context, composers may choose one name over another. For example, in a key that includes D flat major, we would write the black key as D flat instead of C sharp to match the structure of the scale. And harmonic equivalents are also used in modulation, which is changing from one key to the next, and certain tuning systems. Let's quickly review what we learned today. Number 1, the white keys on the piano follow the pattern A, B, C, D, E, F, and G, repeating across the keyboard. Number 2, the black keys don't have their own unique names. Instead, they are named using sharps and flats. Number 3, accidentals modify notes by raising, lowering, or canceling a previous alteration. These are known as sharps, flats, and naturals. A semitone is the smallest step in Western music, while a whole tone consists of two semitones. Number 5, chromatic semitones occur within the same letter name, while diatonic semitones occur between different letter names. Number 6, enharmonic equivalents are notes that sound the same but have different names, such as C sharp and D flat. Understanding these concepts will help you read music more fluently and prepare you for learning scales and chords in the upcoming lessons. Thank you so much for watching. If you found this lesson helpful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next video in this series. Now, I would love to hear from you. What's the most surprising thing you learned today? Let me know in the comments. And if you have any questions, drop them below and I'll be happy to help. See you next time.